Greetings, loved ones. You know, few things evoke a more reassuring sense of warmth, comfort, stability, and safety than going home. Many people see their homes as a personal stronghold or refuge. It's a place of unconditional love and support where there is more freedom, more time for family, and for a few hours at least, we are given an escape from the hustle and craziness of the day. For victims of domestic violence, however, home is anything but a refuge. Today, we're going to talk about the psychological wounds of domestic violence. We're doing this to spread awareness, so please help us get these messages out. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and hit that like button. Share these messages with others because you never know, by doing so, you could save a life. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the NCADV, domestic violence is the intentional physical assault, intimidation, battery, sexual assault, and or use of other threatening behavior by one member of a household against another. Or other less obvious forms of abusive behavior include stalking, the use of threatening looks and gestures, attempts to control the reproductive health of an intimate partner, for example, refusing to use contraception during intercourse, and displays of psychological aggression, such as putting the person down, humiliating them, isolating an intimate partner. So I want to talk to you about the shocking prevalence of domestic violence in America. Intimate, I'm having trouble talking today. Intimate partner violence, a more narrowly defined term for domestic violence, affects both men and women, married or unmarried. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that 1.3 million women and 835,000 men are victims of physical violence by an intimate partner every year. The NCADV also reports that among all domestic violence victims, 85% are women. There are other statistics that say 95%. And 1 in 4 American women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime. And as we know, the WHO says it's pretty much 1 in 3. Crime statistics also indicate that close to 1/3 of all female homicide victims were killed by an intimate partner. 1 out of every 3 femicide, assassination or murder of a woman, 1 out of every 3, she was killed by an intimate partner. So let's talk about these psychological and emotional wounds. Broken, bruised, and battered features are the obvious signs of domestic violence. However, just as physical injuries demand our care and attention, it is imperative that the psychological and emotional wounds suffered from these traumatic events also are addressed. Physical violence always follows psychological violence. So many times we look at the first physical aggression as the beginning of violence, when in reality, the violence has been occurring for weeks, for months, or even years before the first physical assault. The American Psychological Association explains that psychological trauma is, quote, an emotional response to a terrible event, which interferes with an individual's ability to function as he or she would under normal circumstances. While the psychological impact of a particular incident will vary from person to person, most individuals experience increased levels of emotional distress after going through traumatic events. Thankfully, these feelings of distress often subside if adequate support is received from family members, friends, mental health professionals, and other social networks. For victims of spousal abuse and other types of intimate partner violence, however, the situation is not always as clear-cut. Fear of retaliation from an abused partner might prevent victims from seeking needed assistance. Feelings of shame and embarrassment, especially among male victims, can also be a major hindrance to seeking out services or aid. And this lack of emotional support can lead to heightened fear, anxiety, depression, anger, PTSD, social withdrawal, and the use of illicit drugs and alcohol dependence, and finally, even suicidal ideation. The psychological and emotional wounds of domestic violence are devastating. They can potentially haunt victims for many years and rob them of the ability to live a rich and full life. These wounds are completely undetectable by X-ray and too often go untreated. You can see bruises, you can see broken arms and legs, but you can't see the profound effects and damage that psychological abuse is doing in the heart and the mind of the victim. These wounds can actually be more profound and lasting than a bruise that fades or a broken arm that heals. If you have knowledge of someone suffering from violence, you need to intervene. The question is not if you'll encounter a victim of violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you do encounter them? You could be the person who saves a life. You are called. We are all called. We are all destined to be champions for justice. And those who suffer violence need to know that those who love them and those who don't even know them will step out and reach out to them to give them the help and the courage they need to leave before it's too late. This series is dedicated in honor of Gabby Petito, a bright young woman whom the world has lost because of gender violence. Please check out and support the foundation her family has created in her honor at gabbypetitofoundation.org. If you are a victim of violence, I want you to listen to me right now. I want you to know this. You are valued. You are loved. You are intelligent and you are beautiful. God does not want you to suffer violence. He wants you to live in freedom and peace. There is a way out. Abuse is not love. It's not your fault. And if you find that you are suffering domestic violence, I want you to reach out to people. Reach out to someone who can help you and keep reaching out until you find somebody who will help you. If you are in immediate danger, please dial 911 and get the intervention that you need. Our only goal here is to get these messages out, to teach people to recognize violence and to intervene, to help those who suffer to leave. So please help us. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit that like button and please share these messages with others because you never know, just by doing so, you could save a life. Tomorrow, we're going to look at and talk about the impacts of domestic violence. Until then, God bless you.